Codebreakers may well be one of the best competitive fighting games to date. Why? Simply because of the sheer amount of polish that has gone into it. It is an extremely well-made game. Over 40 characters and 60 assists, all culminating in most likely, again, one of the best games on Scratch to date. What makes it so good, though? Well, the sheer amount of skill you can build up while playing it. Which is why in this series, we'll be looking at every single character in order and how to improve at them. The goal of this series is to break down every single character, every single assist, and every single stage, one by one, as well as strategies to help you simply get good at using them. So, today we'll be starting out with the first two characters on the roster, Chirpy and Jay. First of all, Chirpy. Chirpy is a rushdown fighter, which means that he's highly combo focused. You won't see him doing much else than comboing foes. Now, you may recognize Chirpy. I've been doing a bunch of other videos, you know, the Chirpy Reverie ones. Yeah, those. If you haven't watched them, you can go watch them right now. It's a 4-part series on how to speedrun Chirpy Reverie. Now then, let's get into his moveset. First of all is his regular N. This is Hood Spin, a fast attack that hits 3 times and can send your opponent into a small backwards knockback trend. It doesn't deal a lot of damage, but it's an excellent combo starter. So if you want to follow up with the down N, which is a backflip, which does just about the same amount of damage, but different style, you can go ahead with that. Chirpy's third and final normal attack is the air kick. It only deals 1.3 damage, but it can be used to send opponents flying away. It's useful if you need to recover a bit from an onslaught of attacks, as most knockback attacks are. Finally, we get into his M attacks. This is where the fun comes in. Some characters will have only a few Emma moves, usually only 2, but Chirpy has 4 specials. The first of which is the Tower Tumbler, where he takes 2 bricks and he slams them on either side of him. They are surprisingly not as painful as real bricks, but it's Codebreakers, so what do you expect? Now, Chirpy can also dash in the same way that he does in the games. He can... I will count most of this as its own attack, but in my mind, the side dash and the up dash are the same. They deal the same amount of damage, and they're only different in how much distance they travel. First of all, you've got the upwards dash. Chirpy crouches for a moment, and then dashes upwards. This only deals 0.9 damage, and it's not really useful for much, unless you just really want to knock back the other person upwards. Unfortunately, it does put you into free fall as soon as it's finished, so not really worth it. Second of all is the side dash. This does only 0.4 damage, as does the up dash. Side dash can be achieved by holding an arrow key and pressing M. Up dash can be achieved by holding up and pressing M. Yes, it even works like this. And finally, the down dash, dealing the most damage at 1.6, though because of the staling and anti-staling effects, you just saw it deal 1.7. You're welcome. I will explain staling eventually, but it's not really something that's super important. Just as long as you don't spam moves, you should be able to avoid it just fine. Unfortunately, Chirpy's a bit limited in his moveset, because he can't turn around in the air. None Codebreakers characters can. So all of his M attacks are therefore limited to being in one direction. And after you choose that direction by jumping into the air, you can't dash the other way. I'm trying, and it's still bringing me that way. Either way, Chirpy is an excellent character. You can build upon him a lot with strategies, which is what we'll be doing in a moment, but first of all, let's take a look at our second character we're covering today, Jay. Jay is an all-rounder. He can be played in pretty much any way imaginable, and it'll work. Except for ranged, because no ranged projectiles. That's not something that occurs often in Codebreakers. Moreover, Jay is the first character to have a gimmick of his own. His is a triple jump. Dodging in midair while holding up will usually only give you a bit of height, but with Jay, it's almost as if it was a third jump. It's even a bit higher than his usual jump, so you can use it to get to pretty high places. It used to be useful in certain maps, but not any longer. Still, it's an excellent mobility trait. Jay has fairly low health, and he's a bit more accustomed to a faster playstyle. However, as I mentioned, he is an all-rounder, and you can still play him any way you want. He attacks mainly using pink fire and pink energy. So, let's get into it. His first attack is a sword swipe. Like most sword swipes would, it pushes you slightly back on impact and deals just about the amount of damage that you'd expect a sword to deal. The next is an X swipe, where that happens. It deals quite a bit of damage, and also some knockback, so you can chain it into a regular N, but his down N is a pretty useful combat choice. Next is his mid-air lunge. As the name suggests, he lunges through the air and does a punch. This deals 1.8 base damage, and, again, pretty useful way to get your opponent away from you. Generally, air attacks have high knockback. However, it's not true for all characters, so keep that in mind. His combo attack, which is his regular special, sends him on a 3-hit rampage forward, where the first 2 hits deal 0.5 damage, and the third hit deals quite a bit of knockback, as well as 1 damage. It's a bit disjointed from most of the other attacks, but you can still probably find a way to use it well. Finally, his down special. He shoots a laser beam, and it has quite limited range, to be honest, but its versatility makes up for it. You can use it in midair, you can use the knockback from it to hurt a character, and of course, it can be chained. Jay has pretty good chaining, if I do say so myself. So, if you wanted, you could play Jay as a rushdown character, you could play him as a bait and punisher, you could play him in practically any way imaginable, just make sure you're skilled enough at that type. Personally, for newcoming Jay players, I would suggest that you play in whatever style that fits you most. If you like playing rushdown fighters, great. Use him, chain together a ton of combos, and decimate your foes. But if you're more into a pressuring style, then don't be afraid to not use too much knockback and go big on hits. Generally, though, if you want to do that, you'll have to use your sword swipe more often than not, as it's the only not super knockbacky attack he has. But with all that out of the way, how about we jump into some strategies? Okay, in Chirpy's case, there are a number of strategies that you should use, mostly involving combos. First of all, most of Chirpy's attacks, normal attacks, I mean, are quite comboable. Even the Aran, your opponent will generally run towards you to recover the lost ground, which means that you can easily chain it with a backflip or a spin attack. And just in general, all of these attacks are pretty good for general comboing. So if you want to general combo your enemy, then feel free to use these. They can deal a lot of damage over the course of the combo. Chirpy's special moves, on the other hand, can cause a fair amount of stun, which allows you to start combos quickly. And also, if you want to get in and out of a situation quickly, you can do something like that. Down air M, and then quickly jump out of the situation. Especially since down air M deals the most damage out of all the dashes, it's an excellent way to get a bit of damage in on your enemy and then get out. Of course, they will be trying to attack you back, so be ready for that. One final word: if you're playing against a character like Ray with an armor-breaking attack, try not to use this attack, because the armor-breaking move will hit it several times, and you will end up being hit harder than you anticipated because you can't move during this attack. Otherwise, that's pretty much all of Chirpy. I will demonstrate in a moment, but first, let's go over Jay. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about Jay. Again, he's an all-around fighter. You can play him in most any way you want. So, there's no right way to play him or wrong way to play him. But there are a few strategies. First of all, your Aran is a distance closer. So, you don't have to use it for its damage output. It can be used fairly well for its distance that it gives you. Another interesting thing about the Aran is that if your Y velocity is greater than 0, then it automatically translates to 0. But if you're falling at first when you use it, it actually keeps the lowered Y velocity. So instead of going in a straight line, you'll go at a diagonal downward line, which is useful in some situations. I wish there was wave dashing possible with this, but unfortunately there isn't. The least you can get is a bit of a really small jump, but like, it's not useful in the slightest. Other than that, the N attack can be chained together fairly quickly. The only thing that you should be warned about is the slight knockback and the possibility for your opponent to eventually catch up through the attack. If you want your opponent out of your face and ready for a quick combo, down M, follow up with N, follow up with down M. That will take almost, 4.1 health as you soft with the cube there. I can demonstrate it again. Oops, wrong button. Okay, you get the idea. Finally, there is quite a bit of potential with that, but your best combo starter will generally be that. No matter what you decide to chain it into, N or down N and then N is probably the best way to start a combo with Jay. So, I'll now fight against an AI and show you these strategies at work. Alright, so as you see here, I have already went ahead and selected Chirpy as our character, and Ray, a character that Chirpy is kind of weak against, as the AI. It's also a level 8 AI, the hardest difficulty that you can set AIs to. So let's go into it.
3, 2, 1, go.
Right off the bat, Chirpy has two major disadvantages that Ray has. First of all, Ray has the normal N attack, as well as several others, which are armor breakers, which means, as you saw there, can penetrate attacks. And second of all, he also has his grab move and his stun moves, which will stop my combos from working. Though, I can still get a few in on him if he actually lets me. We will be covering Ray soon, but this battle is pretty much doomed. Usually I do better against him, but this time, I think he just got me. There's probably no salvaging this. I'll try again in a moment. But first, death. This is disappointing. Take 2.
Hooray. 3, 2, 1, go.
Armor breaking moves. Yes, I am good at this game, just not necessarily when I need to be. Can't do that. Whatever. Yeah, Ray is a very hard enemy to fight when you're playing Chirpy. I would highly recommend practicing against him, especially in Chirpy's level 8 campaign mode, because once you can actually manage to beat him, I mean, if you can beat him consistently, not just beat him once, or 3 times like I have, you can actually kind of get a feel for how Chirpy works a little bit better. That was much better. On to the second fight
Ray
for Chirpy. Chirpy versus Candlesmith. Let's go.
3, 2, 1, go.
Again, the same old combo. Get close to your opponent, N, down N. That still applies. However, Candlesmith has an annoying way of stunning us when we're close to him with his N. Oh, yay, corner strats. Of course, I will let the way I live. I could have kept bullying him, but honestly... Let's be real, you're practicing in order to actually play against people, so you need to be fair. A major part in that match was that Candlesmith's down N, which we'll tackle much later in the series once we're actually on Candlesmith's episode, does cause him to lose health, and this AI was reckless. AIs have different seeds in this game. It's actually a pretty interesting system. On to Jay's battles. Jay is only going to have one battle, and that is a character that actually counters him pretty well. Flaming Torpedo is a low damage fighter that excels in dealing a lot of damage quickly. Not exactly a rushdown, but it's not too far from one either. Most, if not all of her attacks will interrupt her moves, and it's ridiculously annoying. Luckily, she doesn't have too much health, so being careful, you can dispatch of her pretty easily. Comparatively easily. But that's another fight to practice if you're trying to get good at Jay. Other than that, I would say that that concludes it for this episode. Let me know how you think I did. Honestly, I don't think I did the best, especially with those first clips. The other few clips turned out a lot better than those. But I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye!